Good morning. Okay, so we left off where Jesus and his apostles were getting away for some rest. Rest and recuperation, R&R, we would say. They'd been out preaching and healing. Jesus had sent them out 2 by 2, and they went to a number of cities and they were preaching and teaching and healing people. It was an amazing event. And when they came back together, as we said, they probably had all sorts of stories to tell. But Jesus knew they were tired. And so he told them that they needed to get away and they needed to rest. They needed to go to a secluded place. So that's what happened, right? Well, right. Secluded? Maybe not. As they left the crowds, those crowds who had come to be with them, those crowds that were seeking to hear Jesus, and those crowds that were seeking to be healed, they left those crowds. And those crowds saw them out on the sea, and they evidently ran ahead of them until they got ahead of them to where they were going. And it says that people were coming from all the cities. And so you have this mass mini migration of people coming to this spot where Jesus and his apostles were going to land on the shore. So when they landed, they were not in a secluded place, but they were surrounded by people coming to them, people seeking healing, people seeking teaching, people, probably each of them in some way, wanting to be close to Jesus, wanting to be a part of what was going on, and it was continually demanding on them. So there they were, surrounded by all these people, coming to them, seeking all this attention. 5,000 men. 5,000 men. So much for a secluded place. When they finally got ashore, the crowds were all around them, and yet Jesus was not resentful. Jesus was not angry in any way. He saw the crowds and he felt compassion for them because they were, as Jesus himself said, sheep without a shepherd. Indeed, the needs of the people were great, but Jesus' compassion was also great. The only thing that didn't fit in here was rest. So Jesus began to teach them many things that Scripture says. He taught them long enough that it was starting to get late in the day, and his disciples came to him, urging him to go ahead and send the people into the nearby villages because it was getting close to the time that they would need to eat, and they didn't have enough food. And so it's time for them to go to the villages and buy their food there and to take care of their needs. But Jesus surprised his disciples because he said, "You give them something to eat." What? You give them something to eat. Wait. I'm sure they argued. You want us to go into town and buy enough bread for all these people? That would cost 200 days' wages. That's the reference from Scripture. That would cost 200 days' wages. We don't have that kind of money. So Jesus asked them, his disciples, "How many loaves do you have? Go and look." And so evidently they went. They knew that they themselves didn't have anything, or at least not much. And they started looking around the crowd. They were trying to find out what was available, and they found 5 loaves and 2 fish. Now, I want you to understand that when we're talking about a loaf of bread in this case, we're not talking about a loaf of Wonder Bread sliced and made ready. We're not even talking about a loaf of Italian bread that we would break and eat in an Italian restaurant. We're talking about loaves at that time. Probably these loaves were small enough that a person could easily eat a couple of them. So we're talking 5 loaves and 2 fish. It's nothing. But Jesus took that nothing and he fed them from that. He fed them so that they were satisfied. He fed them, and there was so much food that after they were done eating, they were satisfied. There was gathered up 12 baskets full of bread pieces and fish. Where did that come from? It's an amazing event. I'm sure that some of those people went home and said, "You're not going to believe how I ate this evening." They would have had that story for the rest of their lives, because what happened was a miracle. Jesus had divided them into groups of 50s and 100s. And as all those people were scattered out, those 5,000 were scattered around from those 5 loaves and 2 fish, he provided for them an abundant meal. Well, that was impressive for them. Is there anything we should learn from this? Well, some would suggest that we could learn that fellowship meals are good. Well, I certainly go along with that, but I don't believe that's maybe the main point of this lesson. Somebody else might suggest, don't put men in charge of organizing the food unless Jesus is there. Well, I'd certainly go along with that. But maybe there's a better lesson. Maybe this: Jesus can fulfill the real needs of people. Jesus can take what little we provide and make it more than enough. Whatever we draw from this, we know that as when Abraham was nearly offering up Isaac on the altar, God stopped him and then provided for him a ram that he could offer as a sacrifice. And so Abraham named that place Yahweh Jireh, meaning God will provide. Maybe that's our lesson. Even in the ideas that we face that what we have is just not enough to meet the needs of people, maybe God has something better in store. Because whatever our situation, God can provide. We don't know how. We don't know the way things work like that. I would not suggest you take 5 loaves and 2 fish today and try to feed 5,000 people, because God's working differently right now than he was then. But I'm not sure that the ways that God's working now are not greater. Indeed, God provides for us. He provides for us in ways that we never quite understand. And so we step back and we see this case, a very physical case of people needing to be fed and God providing for that need. Indeed, we serve a mighty God. Go today and enjoy being with that mighty God. Bye.